Welcome back to the Intelligent Founder Podcast. This is Episode 7. Before we dive in, a quick look at what we have covered so far. Episode 1 broke down why AI benchmarks are broken and introduced the 5 metrics that actually predict business value. Episode 2 explored the year intelligence becomes infrastructure and why your next AI co-founder might just be a telco. Episode 3 tackled the VC candy trap and the physics of moats, and why generic startup advice may kill your company. Episode 4 was the Davos AI gap, where 150 CEOs said one thing on stage and the data said something completely different. Episode 5 was a personal favorite. It asked why AI storytelling pops while the AI product itself does not, and what Claude Cowork and the SaaSpocalypse actually mean for builders. And Episode 6 was the lobster episode, the agent war between OpenClaw Moltbook and the OpenAI acquisition. If you have been following along, you will notice a thread running through every episode, the gap between what AI promises and what AI delivers. Today, we pull that thread all the way through. Now, this is a reality check, a big one. Here is what happened. I was going through my LinkedIn feed and stumbled upon the McKinsey's latest State of AI report. New article with the same early November 2025 report, really, with the same report which is actually third year running. I only figured that out now. So the numbers have ticked up a few percentage points. Adoption went from 80-something to 88%. Gen AI usage jumped to 79%. But the punchline did not change. Only 38% of companies have scaled AI beyond pilots. High performers redesign workflows. Everyone else bolts it onto broken processes. Basically, it kind of felt flat. So I wanted to pull down what has been released in the last 2 months, Q1 2026. Precisely to see if they are saying something new and if there is some new developments worth looking at, or if we're actually getting anywhere. In this podcast, we are covering 7 reports: McKinsey, Deloitte, Stanford, Gartner, Forrester, NVIDIA, MITS and P Global, and lastly, OrgView. Quick announcement. We are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, so subscribe wherever you listen. And if you are not already following Intelligent Founder, hit that subscribe button now. Paid subscribers get early access to exclusive deep dives and the full research behind every story. We also added a separate newsletter for daily tools and development updates that are too thin for deep dives, but important to follow through, so you can subscribe to it at AI Unfiltered. All the links are in the article below. Now let us get into it. Let us start with the spending because the numbers are genuinely staggering. Gartner says global AI spending will hit $2.52 trillion in 2026. That is a 44% year-over-year increase. And they are projecting $3.3 trillion by 2027. Trillions. With a T. Most of that growth is driven by AI infrastructure. Hyperscalers pouring money into AI-optimized data centers and GPUs. The construction of AI infrastructure alone will add $401 billion in spending in 2026. Now hold that number in your head and listen to this. S&P Global found that 42% of companies scrapped most of their AI initiatives in 2025. That is up from just 17% the year before. Nearly tripled. On average, 46% of proof of concepts never even make it to production. MIT's Gen AI Divide study, which analyzed 300 public AI deployments and interviewed 150 executives, found that 95% of enterprise Gen AI projects show zero measurable profit and loss impact. 95%. And that is not because the models are bad. MIT is very clear about this. The models work fine. The organizations do not. They call it the learning gap. The AI is ready. The companies are not. Gartner separately predicts that more than 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled by the end of 2027 due to escalating costs, unclear business value, or inadequate risk controls. And Forrester says enterprises will defer a quarter of their planned AI spend into 2027 as financial rigor kicks in. So let that land for a second. $2.52 trillion flowing in, and roughly half of it is landing on projects that will not survive the year. More money, same wall. And here's where the CFO reckoning comes in. This is new. This was not in last year's reports. Forrester found that less than one-third of decision makers can tie the value of AI to their organization's financial growth. So CEOs are now leaning on CFOs to approve AI investments based on ROI. Not vibes, not demos, not impressive PowerPoint decks. Show me the numbers. IBM found that enterprise-wide AI initiatives are achieving ROI of just 5.9%, despite representing 10% of capital investment. Only 14% of CFOs report measurable ROI from AI. Kyndryl surveyed 3,700 senior business leaders and found that 61% feel more pressure to prove AI ROI now versus a year ago. And 53% of investors expect positive ROI within 6 months or less. 6 months. The patience is running out. Now, Deloitte's 2026 report called The Untapped Edge is probably the most comprehensive of the lot. They surveyed 3,235 C-suite leaders across 24 countries and 6 industries, and the data puts a finer point on why this is happening. Only 34% of organizations are using AI to deeply transform products, processes, or business models. Another 30% are redesigning key processes. But 37% more than a third are using AI at surface level with little or no structural change. Just bolting it on. And here is the revenue gap that should worry everyone. Only 20% of organizations earn revenue from AI today. 74% are hoping to. Hoping is not a strategy. That is a 54 percentage point gap between aspiration and reality. The technology exists. The revenue does not. Deloitte also found that 84% of organizations have not redesigned roles around AI, even though more than a third of them expect 10% or more of their jobs to be automated within a year. Think about that. Expecting automation, not preparing for it, that is a collision waiting to happen. And there is a new dimension here that none of the 2024 reports talked about. Sovereign AI. 83% of respondents view sovereign AI as important. 66% are concerned about reliance on foreign AI technologies. 77% now factor vendor country into purchasing decisions. This is not just a tech conversation anymore, it is geopolitical. Where your AI is hosted and who controls it is becoming a board-level decision. On the agentic AI front, 23% of organizations use it moderately today. Nearly 74% expect moderate use within 2 years, but only 21% have mature governance models for autonomous agents, so the adoption is racing ahead of the guardrails. Again, same pattern as cloud migration 10 years ago. Rush in, fix it later. Except with autonomous agents, the stakes are higher. Now, the workforce piece is where it gets really uncomfortable. OrgView surveyed 1,000 C-suite leaders globally and found that 39% of business leaders made employees redundant because of AI. And this is the part that stings, 55% of them admitted they made the wrong decision. More than half. They fired people they needed. During a global skills shortage, 80% say they plan to reskill employees, but the cutting happened first. The order of operations matters, and most organizations got it backwards. Let us talk about the model convergence problem, because Stanford's AI index flagged something that changes the game. New benchmarks, the hard ones, MMUGPQASWE-bench, were introduced to test the limits of advanced AI systems. Within 1 year, performance improved by up to 67 percentage points. The gap between the number 1 and number 10 model dropped from 11.9% to 5.4%. The top 2 models separated by 0.7%. 0.7. And inference cost for GPT 3.5 level performance dropped 280 times in just 2 years. What does that mean, practically? It means the model layer is commoditizing. Fast. If your competitive advantage is, we use the best model, that advantage just evaporated. Everyone has access to roughly the same intelligence now at roughly the same cost. The differentiation has to come from somewhere else. The data, the integration, the workflow design, the plumbing. And speaking of plumbing, there is one sector that is actually getting this right. Buried in NVIDIA's 2026 State of AI and Telecommunications survey, with over 1,000 respondents, is an outlier. 90% of telcos say AI is helping increase revenue and drive down costs simultaneously. Not one or the other. Both. 89% plan to increase AI spending. 77% expect AI native networks before 6G even arrives. Autonomous networks are delivering ROI faster than any other AI use case across any industry. Why is telecom the exception? Because they are not using AI to enhance productivity or improve the customer experience in some vague corporate slide deck way. They are rebuilding the core network architecture itself. AI is not added to the workflow. AI is the workflow. The infrastructure layer is where the real transformation is happening, and most enterprises have not figured that out yet. Now, none of these examples came from the reports themselves. The reports gave us the statistics. The 95%, the 42%, the 5%. So the next step was to go find who those numbers actually belong to. Here are some real names behind the wins and the losses in AI deployment. Not adoption, because everyone has adopted. The question is, who actually made it work? On the winning side, Morgan Stanley deployed an AI assistant for over 16,000 financial advisors. 98% daily adoption. Document access jumped from 20 to 80%. Advisors now spend hours on clients instead of searching files. Narrow task, rigorous evaluation, workflow native. Accelerate built 4 specialized AI agents for insurance claims processing on UiPath. Processing time dropped from 3 days to 1.1 days. 245% ROI in 12 months. $320,000 in annual savings. Human in the loop only when needed. The key here is 4 agents each doing one thing well, not one agent doing everything badly. AnySphere, the company behind the cursor, AI coding assistant hit $500 million in annual revenue in just 3 years, doubling roughly every 2 months, used by over half the Fortune 500. They solved one specific pain point: developer productivity, and embedded deep into the workflow. No one talks about Cursor's model. They talk about how it changed the way they code. SK Telecom and Samsung built the AI RAN parameter recommender that auto-optimizes 5G base stations in real time. Service interruptions down 30%. Signal recovery time doubled. AI embedded in core network operations, not a side tool, not a dashboard. The network itself, on the losing side. Klarna replaced 700 customer service staff with AI, claimed 75% of chats were automated, handling 2.3 million conversations. CEO later admitted quality tanked. Valuation collapsed from $45.6 billion to $6.7 billion. Now rehiring humans through a new on-demand model. Fired first, understood impact second. The org view stat about 55% regretting AI redundancies. Klarna is the poster child for that number. And then there is the S&P Global Graveyard. 42% of companies scrapping most initiatives. 46% of proof of concepts dying before production. The MIT 95% showing zero measurable P&L impact, despite $44 billion invested in AI startups in the first half of 2025 alone. The pattern is the same every time. The winners redesigned the workflow before deploying. The losers bolted AI onto what was already broken. So, what actually separates the 5% that win from the 95% that do not? Across every single report, McKinsey, Deloitte, MIT, Forrester, all of them, the pattern is identical. 5 things. 1. They redesign the workflow before deploying AI, not add AI to step 7. Rebuild steps 1 through 10 around what AI can actually do. 2. They invest in governance before scaling. Only 21% of organizations have mature governance models for AI. That 21% is pulling away from the 79% that does not. 3. They target revenue and innovation, not just cost savings. McKinsey's high performers are 3.6 times more likely to pursue transformative change. Cost cutting is table stakes. Growth is the game. 4. They spend dramatically more. The top performers allocate 35% of their digital budget to AI versus just 7% for everyone else. A 5-to-1 investment gap. 5. They treat AI as business transformation, not a tech upgrade. The MIT report is crystal clear on this. The bottleneck is not model quality. It is organizational change. The learning gap. Companies that succeed are rebuilding how decisions get made, how teams operate, how value flows through the organization. Gartner officially describes AI as being in the trough of disillusionment throughout 2026. That is not a pessimistic take. That is the research firm that coined the hype cycle. And the trough is where the real builders thrive because the tourists leave. So here's the uncomfortable bottom line. AI adoption is universal. AI value capture is not. The technology has arrived. Capabilities are surging, models are converging, costs are plummeting. Nearly every enterprise is using AI somewhere. But the gap between using AI and transforming with AI is enormous. And it is widening, not closing. The organizations that are winning that 5%, that 6% share common traits. They redesigned workflows before deploying. They invested in governance before scaling. They treat AI as a business transformation, not a tech upgrade. And if you are a founder listening to this, here is the practical takeaway. Stop chasing the model layer. That race is over. The models have converged. The real opportunity and the real defensibility is in the infrastructure. The plumbing, the integration layer between raw AI capability and actual business outcomes. That is where the 5% live. That is where the value is. That is where the next decade of AI companies will be built. The winners will not be those with the best algorithms. They will be those with the best plumbing. That is the Q1 2026 reality check. 7 reports. 1 uncomfortable truth. The money is flowing. The results are not. And until organizations stop treating AI as a thing you add and start treating it as a reason to rebuild the way you operate, that gap is only going to grow. Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you see the landscape a little more clearly, hit subscribe and share it with someone on your team who needs to hear this. Paid members get early access exclusive research and behind-the-scenes analysis you will not find anywhere else. Link in the description, and remember, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.